Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt. I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel via Zoom are Mr. Bill Moretsky and Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our assessors today are Mr. Darren Ducharme and Ms. J. Flood, and our administrative personnel is Ms. Fran Picoto. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1, 4, and 5 on our docket today. Ms. Picoto, please affirm the assessors and applicants' testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Darren Ducharme.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Ms. J. Flood.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Trevor Smith.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Before we begin, are there any preliminary issues we need to talk about? Okay. Then let's start. Item number 1 on our agenda, file number 243156, 251 Bond Street. Madam Assessor, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 24-3156, roll number 1209368800, 251 Bond Street. For 2025, we have the assessed value at $1,300,000. We do have a recommendation. Is it all right if we go through the presentation?
Please, if you can go through it
And
then
then
present your recommendation.
Yes. We have the parcel use as a retail store. Our leasable area is 9,552 square feet. If you go to pages 2 and 3, it is the aerial and the street view of the subject property. Page 4 is the subject sale history, the most recent being March 23rd, 2018, $1,250,000. Page 5 is the rent comparables. They are all in the general area. The comparables range between 578 square feet and 1,500 square feet. The rent ranges from $14.99 to $21. Page 6 is our original workup. for the property. We have it as 7 premises, 2 of them as the C2 standard finish, 3 are the substandard basement, potential rate of 109,413. We have 3% expenses, $7 shortfall, and our capitalization rate of 7.5% for the value of $1,300,000.
Should I go through the changes that for the recommended amount?
However you wish to do it.
Okay. So PIDs 14260
Where are we looking on your page?
6.
Your
Sorry.
page 6, okay?
Yeah. So PIDs 14260 23444 23445 and 23446. We changed the rents to $17 right across. The reason being the $17 is in line with our average and median rents of the comparables.
Okay.
And the other PIDs 31935, 31936, and 31940. We changed the rents. This is the basement, so we've changed them all to $2, which is our basic unfinished basement rent, which would be used for storage.
And pardon me, what was that rate?
$2 for each of those 3 PIDs.
Mm-hmm.
So that changes the effective market income from 103,942 to 88,572. The shortfall remains the same. We have the expenses remain the same at 3%. We have the the net operating income changes from 97,480 to 82,572. The cap remains the same at 7.5. That gives us a value of 1,100,959 or 1,101,000 rounded.
1,101,000.
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
I thank the city for the second look at it, but I believe we have to proceed.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Descharmes, Mr. Smith does not accept your recommendation, so would you like to provide more information or?
I'll let Jay can finish off the brief.
Just finish it. The page 7 is our capitalization rate chart. Pages 9 through 10 is just the mailer that was provided. And then within 11 and 12 are photos of the comparable subject programs. That is our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, questions for the assessors?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do have just a couple. And thank you again for having a second look at valuation. I guess my first question, so when I look at, well, the first question is, of course, given workload at the city, I'm assuming that you haven't had a chance to inspect the properties on the docket today.
That would be correct, but
For this property.
for this property, yes.
Okay.
It's on my radar and I will be contacting you in the future,
Okay,
so I can check the basement.
sure. The second question, so the revised the original NOI, which is not in use anymore, was just over 97,000, and the revised one is 82,572, I believe.
Correct.
Is that the figure? So when I look at the income and expense report that was provided by the property owner, they're indicating that there's no vacancy in the property, and their NOI for the relevant time frame came to $49,488. This is on your page 9. That's quite a gulf between the projected NOI of the city and the in-place NOI of the property itself, is it not?
It is, yeah. I was-
Okay. Those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Moretsky, do you have questions for the assessors?
Or I just want to go back to your changes, possible. Want to make sure I got them right. So on page 6 there, the first 4 were changed to 17. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. These would be all the main floor premises.
Okay, and the bottom 3 were changed to $2. Correct.
Yes, these would be all basement premises.
Okay. And the EGI was 88,572.
Yes, that's correct.
And NOI was 82,572.
Correct.
Okay. How did you get the was it the cap rate of 7.5?
That's a model driven cap.
Is that backed up by the chart on page 7?
It is, in fact, you'll note that according to that chart, 7.5% is at the 80th percentile for the city of Winnipeg, for Colliers and CBRE, and is exactly at the 80th percentile for the Cushman Wakefield report.
Which category are you using there, please?
Retail, regional,
Regional?
yeah.
Okay.
So we feel that that's a fair one and acknowledges the challenges of the area.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread.
No, I'm fine, thank you, no questions.
Okay, so in terms of the square footage that you're using, you basically go at it now, 1 main floor rent and 1 basement rent. Is the basement premises leasable?
To my knowledge, they are not. That's why we applied the $2, which is a basic, basically just a storage fee.
So you do attribute value to the storage?
Yeah, we do. You know, we find that there is a little bit of value to basements, even though it's unfinished. And it would go higher as, you know, there's basements that add bathrooms or staff rooms or lunchrooms and whatnot. So the value would increase in those cases.
Okay, but it wouldn't be rentable on its own
No.
in any way?
No.
Okay.
If I may add, we did have 1 tenant in one of the basement premises up until 2016.
Okay,
Yeah, but until further inspection, we'll need to determine that, whether it's the condition it's in.
okay. And with respect to the difference between the INE and the NOI and your NOI, what, do you have a response for that other than, I know you acknowledge it is significantly lower, but is there any other detail?
Yeah, I don't think when we look at the applicant covers it in his brief, some of the rents that are attributed. For example, the barber shop, I think it's $3.10. I don't believe that's really the true market rent. So I'm not sure if the owners, you know, getting as much as can from the property.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So I will walk us through the brief here so we cover everything, but I guess I'll bring a few points up to start with. The main dispute is not over the basement space. In fact, I think the city's projected revenue for the basement space is marginally lower now that they've adjusted the rate to $2 a square foot versus what I've attributed to the basement. There is no actual revenue being generated from the basement space to start with, nor has there been for as long as I've been involved with the property, I'm not aware of any separate tenant having been in the basement prior to my involvement, but certainly the space, as is typical in our marketplace, is just additional space. The way that space, commercial space in Winnipeg is marketed when you have a main floor and a basement is that you pay your lease based on the above grade space. And if there's additional utility to that basement space for storage purposes, etc., then that would be encompassed in the rate that you pay for the main floor, not in a separate lease rate for the basement, or adding that amount of space onto the overall lease. That's simply not how it's done. If I could point you at this point to the addenda of my material. It's labeled A-4. I'm not sure what page number it would be in your 19, 20, 21. So it'll be page 24, I believe, in your brief. This is an older advertisement for the subject property. It's not as of the valuation date or anything, and we're not looking at lease rates or anything. What I'm pointing out to you, if you go down to the description there at the bottom, you can see that it states includes full basement for storage. So there, as is the standard in Winnipeg, including the basement as just an additional utility essentially for the main floor. You pay based on the main floor, but the basement is there for you to use as storage, etc. But that square footage is not encompassed into the actual lease. So that is essentially what we're looking at in the basement space. It is storage for the main floor tenants. Our main issue that we're looking at here is the achievable rent for the subject property on the main floor, and that's where our main dispute with the city arises. You'll see why in a moment. We'll jump through this. Obviously, our value that we arrived at for the subject property differs considerably from what the city has placed on it initially, as well as the recommendations. So I want to be cognizant of that and explain where the gaps are and why we felt we needed to proceed here versus accepting the recommendation, obviously. So let's look at my page 3 just for a bit of background. We have a few details on the property. Obviously, it's located downtown M, multiple use zoning. Assessed at 1.3 million. The original building was built in 1937, 2,100 square feet plus full basement. And the addition to the property was built in 1946, again with the full basement. So the age of the structure is obviously considerably older, in the 30s and 40s. Obviously, it's not, things have been changed since that time, but it has not seen any recent upgrading or renovation, etc., as far as bringing it up to modern day standards. It essentially fills the site, and there's no on-site parking. Let's skip forward to the photos of the property. Beginning on page 4, some exteriors you can see. So it's evident from the outside that the property hasn't seen a facelift on the exterior to bring in new tenants with better amenities, better visibility, better signage, that type of thing. You can see the other photos on page 5 of the exterior, as well as the location across from the former Hudson Day Company property on the west side of Vaughan. Moving forward, we get into the inside, so you can see photos of the individual units. You have the we'll call it a vape / cannabis shop, essentially. Music and more, that's largely what's sold there. On page 6, you have a barber shop on page 7, and the takeout pizza on page number 8. 8 and 9 is what we're looking at there. So those are the tenancies that are shown and the level of finish. So it's obviously not been redone as shown, and it's not something that would draw tenants that are looking for higher end space and willing to pay higher rates. Moving on, page 10, obviously the site already described. Building was constructed in 37 with the addition in 46. The description of the construction there itself and the site itself, and this is important, is on the corner of Graham Avenue and Vaughan, immediately across from the former Hudson Bay building, 1 block south of Portage Avenue. And this is critical to understanding why we've placed the rent on the building that we have and why they're getting the rents that they are achieving. The area in general has experienced extensive and growing, I would say, socioeconomic challenges, which have impacted the desirability of properties in the area for potential tenants. Now, obviously, with the Bay vacating their property there some time ago, that's taken away a significant portion of potential customers and clients for tenants of this particular property. It takes away all of that traffic. They're no longer, going across for pizza or nails done, etc. That's just the Bay itself. Now, obviously, that will get redeveloped over time, but that will take some time and is not essentially the same thing as an active and bustling former Bay premises. Now, you move 1 block north onto Portage Avenue, you have the Forks North Portage development on the north side. Obviously, the shopping center there, we're all aware of the issues that have gone on with that shopping center. It has been a challenge since it's been constructed and has become more so over time. If you look at the leasing in that particular property, they've lost most of their major national tenancies. Staples left in recent time. Yes, they do fill some of them, but the degree of vacancy in that property is very high. So that's in the shopping center itself. On the north side, now if you go down to street level, which is where we're at, and you head eastward, the level of vacancy in street front properties there is quite significant and growing over time. The number of for lease signs is quite remarkable, really, and again points to the desirability of that particular area with regard to tenants, and that's on Portage Avenue. This is a block south on the corner of Graham and Vaughan. So there is a very significant vacancy issue downtown with regard to commercial space, and this particular property is certainly in the area that is heavily impacted by that as well. So what does all that mean? It means that they can't achieve, market leading or market average rents. That's shown by what they actually achieve in the subject property itself, as well as what we've projected for the property on a valuation for assessment here today. So The property location is shown on page number 11. I've described it. We'll skip forward into the valuation itself, beginning on page number 15. Now, subject property is operated on a gross lease basis. So what we've done on page number 14 is provide you with the actual gross rent amounts and then convert them to net rental rates based on the actual operating expenses of the property in order to show you where the subject is in the marketplace as far as what they're actually generating. So the 2022 expenses for the property came out to $10.86 a square foot. Very similar to the last cycle, which was $10.71 per square foot. So a very slight increase. What we've done is deduct that amount from the gross rents to provide you with the net rents in the chart in the middle of the page. So as you can see, we have rents ranging from upper end of $18.44 a square foot for one tenancy with the term ending in 2023. And then we have $10.93 a square foot for a longer term tenant, $13.14 a square foot for a tenant again ending in 2023. And our most recently renewed tenant or most recent lease for the property beginning in 2020, the last one was at a gross rent of $13.67, generating a net rent to them of $2.81. Is this market? No, I'm not saying that it is market, but that's what they're actually getting in the property. So if you look at the net that they are generating for the property, net rents, the gross potential rent is $49,413. Now, this is probably somewhat under market, so we're not basing our actual valuation on that, but that's what the property generates. Now, the average net rent, and this is simply coincidental based on what they actually generate, is $10 per square foot for that property. Now, is that market? Well, let's look at what the market says. Bottom of page 14, we have comparable leases and asking rates in the area. So our most telling one, I would say, is the very first one, 261 Vaughan. So our address is 251 Vaughan. If you go to the property immediately north of it, they have street front retail on Vaughan, closer to Portage Avenue for lease. As of the relevant time frame, you can see they have two units there, 1,736 square feet, 644 square feet. Similar age of the building between 1928 and 1935. And as of the reference date, they were asking $11 per square foot without any takers. They were not getting a lot of interest in the property. That is immediately adjacent to the subject property. So what does that particular property look like? Well, let's skip forward to your last three pages in the addenda. 261 Vaughan, I'll wait for everybody to get there. So you can see the brochure for the property as of the relevant time frame, 261 Vaughan. You can see the street front location there, age of the property, and it's immediately adjacent. Now, they're asking $11 per square foot. They describe it. One thing I will point out on page A7, they note on-site security guard available from Monday to Saturday. So just again, further evidence of the area that we're operating in. What does that unit look like? Well, very last page, A8, gives you an image of the interior of that property that they were looking to lease for $11 per square foot for the subjects. for that property. So that's an $11 asking rate, which they hadn't achieved, better space, and immediately adjacent to the subject. Let's move on to the actuals in the marketplace. We have a total of 9 here, I guess. They range, they're generally, for the most part, all downtown, not each and every one of them, but they're chosen for comparability to the subject. Sometimes we're looking at the age of the property, the location, etc. So number 2, lease in 2022, $7.50 a square foot. This is on 615 Portage. Obviously, it's a larger leased area. It's new property, and they're looking for $7.50 there. That I would argue would be under market, but it is what was achieved at that property. 401 Graham, so Graham Street Mall, older property, 1947, older lease, obviously, in 2014, but they're looking at $9 a square foot there. Then we move forward, and I'm not going to run through each and every one of them here, but we're looking at rents in the range of $6-7 per square foot. For some of these properties, ranging up to $11.16 a square foot for some of these properties. Now, what are the higher ones? Well, 470 River, we look at that particular property. It is in Osborne Village, so a little bit obviously different area somewhat from the subject. Built in 1903, though, older property, lease start 2018, $11.16 a square foot. Number 2, Donald, is newer property. Well, it built in 2 phases, 1958 and 93. We have $11 a square foot on that particular property. That's heading south from downtown as you go over the bridge. Now, are each and every one of these ideal comps? No, they're not. It's difficult to get perfect information that will give you give you a solid basis each and every time we do this. What this does is help frame what an appropriate rental rate for the subject property would be. So what does the property achieve? Well, they're getting 1093, 1314, and a tenancy that's ending in 2023, which was likely to go down at the high end, and then one well under market with an average of $10 per square foot. Next door, they're not achieving $11 per square foot. When I look at the Johnson report and you look at the average net asking rate for retail in central Winnipeg, they're at $13.58 per square foot for year end 2022. That encompasses obviously the whole downtown area and gives you a great range of potential tenancies from the upper end to the lower end. The average was $13.58. The subject property, we recognize that it is on Graham and does have that visibility, etc. But for the reasons we've stated, we have used $12 per square foot as a rent for the subject property for the leasable area, which is the above grade space again. So we're using $12 per square foot. Now, we think that's an optimistic view of what they would achieve for net rental rates on the market, given what we've seen. And again, I point out that in place, they're getting $10 per square foot. Now, we need to address the basement space. It's not leased out. They don't generate any revenue from it. They're not going to generate any revenue from it, but it is there. So typically, again, that's built into the rate that you get on the main floor. We've probably encompassed some of that in that $12 rate that we're assigning to it, but in the interests of the valuation for assessment, we've assigned $12,000 in storage revenue to the basement as a theoretical revenue stream. So we have accounted for the basement space in our valuation. And we're projecting what we feel is probably a slightly above market rate of $12 per square foot. Let's move forward. In the valuation, we've got details on vacancy. I'm not disputing the rate there, the expense allowance. I don't know that we need to go through that in any great detail. There was we've all covered this extensively in past hearings. I'm not going to wander through it. We have obviously a difference in viewpoint from the city of Winnipeg with regard to what should be included in the expense allowance. There was a case that went before the municipal board, not specifically on this issue, but it was the one case where both parties spent a significant amount of time covering the non-recoverable issue in their presentations to the municipal board. The decision that was taken by the municipal board was that the non-recoverables for that specific building should be 4.6% is what was decided based on the information presented. Now, we've used a non-recoverable rate of 5% in our analysis. So down from what was projected originally of 7% and up from what the city has of 3%. Shortfall allowance of $7 per square foot, we don't dispute. And when we look at the subject property and the 7.5% capitalization rate for the city, typically we would be somewhat higher than that. Looking at a capitalization rate of 8% is typically what I would see for a property of this type in this location with this tenant profile. However, we're looking at the overall value of the property as well, so we're not disputing the city's 7.5%. So our summary evaluation is on page 18. Again, we've assigned a $12 per square foot rate to the main floor space above what they're actually achieving and probably slightly above market. We've added in some theoretical storage revenue that they don't yet. And you can see the rest of the parameters there. Capped at 7.5%. This gives you $839,000 as a final market value. Now, the other thing to address here is the sale of the property, which the city has, I don't know that I had it included, but property sold in 2018 for $1,250,000. It was an arm's length sale. What I can tell you is that this particular owner owns two properties. One of them he operates his business in, and this is his other. He's not a sophisticated investor. He didn't have great advice, and he paid what he paid for the property, and he has seen the property underperform ever since based on the actual income and expense for the property. So I would not place a lot of weight on that particular sale. Is it arm's length? Yes, it is. But that is the background for that actual transaction. So that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Ducharme or Ms. Flood, do you have questions for the applicant?
Let Ms. Flood go first.
Oh, thank you. It's just regarding the pages 14 and 15 with your market.
Can you just speak up a little so our
Sorry.
Zoom participants can hear you? Thank you.
For pages 14 and 15 regarding your market leasing activity.
Yes.
I just have some questions, if you can help me understand for some of the rents that you got.
Certainly.
I was looking at our income and expense mailers that were provided, and some of the net rents that you provided don't match up. So I'm hoping you can add shed more light on that. Thank you. So you said for 261, they're asking that you provided the brochure. For For the 261B, I know it's a part of the building and that one is for $6. Was there, I don't know if I missed it in your brief, if there was the brochure for that one specifically? But for our income expense mailers that we saw, I didn't see one for $6 for that specific one.
Or 261, Bob?
261B bond. That's on your page 15, your number 7, comparable.
Okay, just looking at the detail on that. So, okay, if you go and again, this, as I stated, it's not all perfect information that we provide. The details are accurate, but if you look at that number 7 there, 261B Vaughan, so that is the same space, but that particular lease was from 2015. So they were achieving $6 per square foot net in that space in the 2-year lease term that started in 2015. So that's obviously going back in time.
Okay.
It's not right up at the valuation date, but that is what they got for that space in that particular lease.
Okay, so then I'll just, should I assume that for the start dates, that's what you're referring to, those start dates, is that's their starting?
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Okay, thank you. I got a couple. In regards to, you mentioned the age of the building. I'm not sure if you're aware that in 2001, there was a fire that caused major structural damage to the unit at 251 and 253. And these units were gutted and repaired. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I was aware they had a fire back in time, and obviously they had to rebuild the unit at that time, yes.
Okay, yeah, we have a declared construction value under tile. That was a while ago. In 2017, more recently, the unit at 433 Graham was renovated. We have a declared construction value of $40,000. It created 4 new tenant treatment rooms, an office, a waiting area, and a staff area. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, they put a tenant in at that time, and they had the space built out for them. Yes, I know. Construction value again is not directly translate to market value, but certainly that is what was built out.
Yeah, there was some maintenance and upkeep since.
Well, yes, I'm not saying that, it was a building that was built in 1937 and not changed ever since.
Okay, yeah, perfect, fair enough. And on page 14, you'd mentioned that, and the area in general, you'd mentioned the property historically has challenges with vacancy. Would you agree that according to our records, Revolution or one tenant has been there since 2017, one tenant that's been there since 2008, one since 2019, and one since 2020? Does that sound about right?
Well, I'm not looking at the records of, when each particular lease started, but they have had significant turnover in some of their leases on the Graham Avenue frontage in particular. But if you have that detail in front of you, I'm not disputing your records.
Okay. I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, do you have questions for the applicant?
Just a couple. Relative to the date, on page 14, you talk about a 1906 structure, but then all of the other evidence suggests a build of 1937. Can you just clarify that for me, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. That is a typo or an error, rather. It's not a 1906 structure as shown on page number 3. It was built, the original structure was 1937 with the addition in 1946. So
I got that.
Please disregard that. The commentary is accurate. I don't know why that was not removed.
Okay, you'll fix that. Photos. What date were those photos taken, Trevor?
Well, they varied in time. I have inspected the property. trying to remember when I specifically inspected it, so they would have been taken in 2022, I believe.
So prior to the reference. date.
Yeah, some of the exteriors are more recent than that. In fact, yes, the exteriors are more recent than the interior. So, yeah, prior to the reference date, but as I'm sure you can understand, we don't have the opportunity to go and see all of our properties, in April of 2023.
Understand. What would you say is most contributing to the condition of the building? Well, first, what is the condition of the building in your eyes and the property in general? And what is the biggest contributor to that?
Biggest contributor to the condition?
Yeah,
Well, so you have given the location that the property's in and my taking into account my description of the area and the socioeconomic issues, you draw certain tenants. So we have a takeout pizza place. We have aluminum sound, which is not the photos of that are as you can see on page 6, that is well, that's not your only tenancies in the property. Obviously, there's a barber shop that they and another tenant in there that are slightly different, but the tenants that you draw are based on the area and the demand and what people are willing to pay for that space. So when you have tenants of this particular type paying what they're paying, the space is not built out to the same level as more fortuitously located properties with better tenancies and is perhaps cared for a bit less.
I'll leave it there. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, I do note that you have attributed storage revenue of $12,000,
Yes.
right, into your. So I think maybe the assessors can. Okay, that's how you attributed. Why didn't you use a square foot basis for that?
Because they're not done that way in the marketplace.
They're not done that way.
If we
Coming
had,
in as other.
it's simply storage space. So, and typically it's not achieving any revenue in the majority of properties with basement space. They do not generate any revenue from that space as storage revenue, etc. If it's taken into account, it's taken into account by the rate that they paid for their main floor
I see.
leasable space.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not taken into account in their main floor rents right now, but you are attributing some value to it.
I'm attributing
Nonetheless.
value to it. I won't say that it's not taken into account. The tenants and the landlord agreed on the lease rates that they did, and the space was there and available to them. It's not like they don't have access to the basement.
So
It's
they
there
are
for their
using,
use.
they are using it.
Some of them do use it, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not like it's a heavily used space or advertised for storage revenue, etc. So adding that space into the overall area for leasable space and attributing a net rental rate to it, it just doesn't happen like that. So it would be misleading.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have.
I didn't get my opportunity, Lynn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry about
I
that.
did that last time too in the back.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I deserve that one actually. Okay, I actually do have some questions. Okay, so for I guess we can go to 14, page 14, get started on this issue. So the gross rent then means that the owner is paying everything, including utilities, the whole shop. Is that a correct
Yeah,
summary of what gross rent is then?
it is, yes.
Okay, so you simply subtracted, not simply, but rather more in depth, but you subtracted the expenses, operating expenses to get your $10 net, correct?
Well, yes, yeah, I'll just take you back to that page 14. So for 2022 operating year, the expenses were 1086 per square foot. Taking back to the previous cycle in that same sentence, it was 1071 per square foot. So it's pretty consistent. And what we did was deduct that from each of the lease rates to get the net rent per square foot. And it just so happens to average down to $10 per square foot. That's not intentional. That's the average of the 49,413 divided by the leasable area.
So is that normally what happens in these cases, that the owner pays all of the utilities?
I won't say that it's the norm. What you see often in older properties, in particular, I would say is that they are operated on a gross lease basis or on a semi-gross lease basis, where the tenant may pay, say, for their utilities, but the tenant, or rather the owner, covers property tax, insurance, repair and maintenance, all of these other items, right? There can be a mix. Obviously, the ideal is that it's done on a net basis, so the owner has surety of what their revenue stream will be, and the tenant knows what they're paying a fair rate as well. But what you do see in some older buildings such as this is a gross lease basis. Certainly, buildings built now, it's not done on a gross lease basis, but you do find these instances where that was how it was originally done, and it can be quite complicated to unwind that and move towards true net.
Okay, so if we look at that page 22. So some of those there is an expense that kind of jumps out at me there, 11,495 for maintenance and repair. So that was in 22.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about that? That seems pretty high for 1 year, or is it not? Is that pretty consistent, normal?
Well, what I would point out to you is the consistency of the operating costs, and 9 to 10 to 11, 12 per square foot in an older building is certainly not. It is relatively normal. I would state being over 10 is not unusual. The consistency of the operating expenses, and I didn't.
I was talking about the maintenance and repair, though, Mr. Sherm. Sorry.
Yes,
Mr. Smith, yeah. I'm just talking about that maintenance and repair.
Okay, so we're looking at for that particular year, $11,495 per square foot. Is that particular item overly high? No, I would not really say so. When you take into account the fluctuations in what needs to be dealt with on a property, the next year may be 4,000, or it might be 15,000, but the 11,000 is not out of the norm in any real way. But again, you're looking at you're looking at one item in isolation, and really what we're looking at is the overall operating expenses. Are they consistent? Yes, they are consistent.
And you're saying that because the previous cycle, there was one that was similar.
No, there wasn't one. We did look at the operating expenses over time, and for the particular year of that last cycle, it was $10.71 per square foot. But the other years were consistent as well. So it's not like the repair and maintenance from this one particular year would throw the throwing the number that we've used out of whack. It's in line with what the property typically has.
It'll.
So why didn't you put those that material in your presentation for those other years that you used?
Well, because frankly, we're looking at this cycle, so it's as we all know, I tend to talk quite a bit, so if we have more material, it will take that much longer. There can be a point where we're at overkill, so I haven't included other years of income and expense because typically we're presenting on the year that's relevant unless there's a particular need for additional info.
Okay, but you used that 10.71 per square foot information to support the operating expenses in 86.
I did.
But you didn't provide any information on that. So I'm a little bit not really clear on how you arrived at 10.71. You said that you took many years and blended them together.
No,
Is
I
that
didn't
what you
say
did, or
that.
did you use one?
So to be clear, for the last cycle, 2023 assessment, the relevant income and expense for the subject property for that particular year was $10.71 per square foot as an average for the operating costs.
Okay, so what year was that then? What year was that you're talking about?
Well, the valuation date for the 2023 cycle was April 1 of 2021, so that would be the 2020 operating year. And they were 1071 per square foot. And what I had stated was that we did look at other years and they were consistent with that general amount of operating expense. So the whole point of this is how do you reduce a gross rent of $28 or whatever they are, right, down to an appropriate net rental rate? Well, you need to look at what the operating expenses are and net those out. So that's what we've done. The background information of 1071, we're getting a bit off stream here as far as what's relevant, I think, but simply provided as additional supportive material. The 1086 is what the property generated, and what we said is it's a consistent average. So in using that to come down to the nets that we did, that's the appropriate methodology. It's used by both the city as well as the professional appellants. Did we use those figures? No, we projected $12 per square foot for the subject property, $2 above, and arguably we're saying that's slightly above what they would get for market based on the evidence provided.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. And I guess I've already asked mine. So before we finish, is there any desire for summation?
I would.
Yes, go ahead.
I think the rents of the main floor are the core basic issue. Based on the comparables that we provided, which are located in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, which are noted on the last pages of my brief on the same block or the block over. The comparable buildings were built before this subject for comparables 1 and 2, or around the same time as the subject, comparable 3 and 4. And the comparables we provided are of similar tenancy to most of the subject tenants. The comparables include a barber, a restaurant, and a service tenant. And therefore, we feel the recommendation provided is fair and reasonable.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Well, similarly, the rents that we've provided in our valuation are for older properties in the downtown area typically. And you can see the range that they provide. But what we're really looking at here is, yes, what would this property lease for on the marketplace? Well, we have a property next door, Superior, asking $11 per square foot, not able to achieve it for, again, a superior space. The on-site rents are averaging out at $10 per square foot. We have the issues in the area driving where people are willing to locate and what they're willing to pay for. So assigning a $12 per square foot rate, we feel is optimistic for the subject. But that is what we're basing our valuation on. When I look at some of the comparables that the city has provided, which I did not get into questioning for, typically we're seeing superior level of renovation and tenancy. So obviously that will drive higher rents. That's my summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes item number 1. Item number 4 on our agenda is 117 Osborne Street.
Yeah, shorten this for us.
Sure.
So we're simply looking for confirmation for this particular property.
Okay. So then what I'll do is I'll have the assessor read the property into the record, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay.
If you could just read it into the record, do a very short summary.
Okay, file number 24-4081. The roll number is 120-321-12000. The address is 117 Osborne Street. And we have a value. We're asking to maintain the value of $634,000.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Smith, you've indicated you're requesting this value be confirmed.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions or?
I don't. Thank you.
Mr. Morensky?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes item 4. Item 5 on our agenda now is file 243792 478 River Avenue. When you're ready.
Okay, thank you. File number 243792. The roll number is 120-321-28000. The address is 478 River. For the roll year 2025 with a reference date April 1st, 2023. We have an assessed value of $1,368,060. The parcel use is a CMRST. It's one building. We have 10 premises, 3 stories. The actual year built 1908, an effective year built 1960. We have a leasable area 10,498 square feet. We are requesting or seeking non-compliance for 2022. We did not receive the requested information back for the subject property from the owner. This subject property has a history of non-compliance. The last mailer returned being 2018. And this information is crucial for the development of our assessed values. And therefore, we're requesting the penalty for non-compliance be granted to maintain the assessed value for the 2025 roll year.
Okay, can you take us through the evidence on that? Or
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, do you have a comment yet? No?
I have no comment.
Okay. thank
We can start on page 8. Start of my evidence for non-compliance. We see the envelope that the information was sent in. This is a second mailing, the registered mail mailing on the near the mid left. is a photo showing the date, June 9th, 2023. Near the bottom right is the tracking number LP 661-175-35CA. On page 9, just the other side on the envelope. On page 10 of my brief is the cover letter that was sent, shows the tracking number as well, same as on the envelope, as well as the mailing address, 3rd floor, -312 Ross Avenue, and it shows the owner as a numbered Manitoba company, which is the current owner. Page 11 is the instructions and legislation. This is the instructions for completing the questionnaire that went out. Page 12 is the legislative information that was included in the envelope. Page 13, the income and expense questionnaire that was sent out requesting return. Page 14 is the second page of the income and expense questionnaire. Page 15 is the tenant verification form that was sent out requesting return. And on page 16 is the Canada Post signature card. You'll note the tracking number matches to the envelope and cover letter. And you'll also note a signature has been provided. On page 17 is the delivery confirmation report. You'll note that the information was put together June 9th and culminated with a signature June 26th. Keeping in mind, again, the property has a history of non-compliance. This property was appealed for the 2020 roll year where there was non-cooperation that was granted with the same address at the time. If there is a mailing address change, the onus is on the owner to provide that information. And that will conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Duchamp. Mr. Smith?
I have no further information to add.
Thank you. Mr. Moretsky?
Is that signature there on page 16? Is that the signature of the owner?
I have no idea whose signature that is. It's ineligible.
Does it say who that person is though? It doesn't, yeah, lender.
No, usually they'll give initials. In this case, they put down the numbered company.
All right. Oh, I have no further questions on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Okay, the panel will go into camera and make our decision. Thank you. The panel has considered the assessor's request and we are granting the request that burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation. If a reduction in assessment is ordered, it follows section 54(3)(2) of the Municipal Assessment Act. So Mr. Smith, that means the burden of proof lies to you and you can go first on this matter.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a property that we had managed to discuss in advance of the submission timeframe to the Board of Revision, and we did arrive at a value that we were in agreement with the City of Winnipeg. And I believe, Darren, you've got that there, right?
Yes, 1,268,000.
1,268,000.
Yes.
And can somebody explain
Yes.
to us how this number was arrived at?
So I did receive from the applicant, from Trevor, the rent roll as well as income and expenses. And it showed a net operating income of $96,996. And he's agreeing to our cap rate of 7.65. And that's how we arrive at the value of 1,268,000.
Okay, so you're basically reducing the NOI
Yes,
to 96,996
correct,
and keeping the cap of 7.65.
correct.
Thank you. And that's based on evidence presented through the INE.
Yes,
Income and expense and
right.
rents.
And it aligned with, we did an inspection of the property in July of this year, and it kind of aligned with our inspection.
Mr. Moretsky, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
What was that final value, please?
1,268,000.
And you used 96906 as the NOI?
96996.
Thank you. That's why I have a different number. I have no further questions. No further
One
questions.
more question, Madam Chair, but
Sure.
is this then considered a recommendation to reduce then? By the,
Effective for January 1st, 2026.
Yes, there's a recommendation to reduce for the second year of the cycle. The
second year?
first year, there would be the penalty of no change.
I just want to make sure we have the correct terminology.
Yeah.
Okay, no further questions. Sorry.
Then that concludes item number 5. And with that, we've heard all of the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.